2019. And he got initiation from His Holiness Bhakti Swami Guru Maharaj in 2018. And he joined ISKCON Ujjain Brahmachari Ashram in 2022. And currently he is serving as a youth preacher in NIT Bhopal. And so we have Prabhu with us today to share the introduction of His Grace Brahma Tirtha Prabhu. So Prabhu will share introduction at 6 o'clock. So I would request the host by the time to share the lecture of His Grace Brahma Tirtha Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. My name is Brajabihari Das, and I have the great fortune today of being interviewing His Grace Brahmatirtha Prabhu. And when we were thinking about this interview, as you know, this month is dedicated to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But we were also thinking, well, how, about Srila Prabhupada, and then I thought, well, Brahmatirtha Prabhu had that. The book Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers came from his time with Srila Prabhupada in Lord Chaitanya's birthplace in Sri Dham Mayapur. There's a picture of the book right there. So I said, how about if we interview him about his times with Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur? And the devotees on the team said, yeah, that's a great idea. So that's how we got here today. And welcome, Brahmatirtha Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, and we're so happy to have you. So let's dive right into it because we don't have a lot of time. Before we talk about your time with Srila Prabhupada, could you help us understand how you got there? How does a guy from New Jersey end up in Mayapur of all places in the I guess it was the early 1970s. So
yeah. Well,
you walk us through that a bit.
Well, we'll begin. I was born at a young age. So I had this attraction to India since I was a little boy, an unexplained attraction that eventually I was able to understand when I got to India. And I saw a Harinam party, which Jayadvaita Swami was probably on around 68 in New York. And when I saw the party, I was just amazed. It was in Greenwich Village. And in those days, there were many exhibitionists in Greenwich Village. So when I saw the devotees, I said, these are the biggest exhibitions I've ever seen, or they're really into something different. And I didn't know which it was. And the mantra stuck in my mind, but I didn't know the mantra. And then a play came out on Broadway called Hair. And in the play Hair, it became a movie later on. They sing Hare Krishna, followed by Happy Marijuana. In those days, both themes seemed of interest to me. And so I learned the mantra from the album and just started chanting. And then finally, I found out where they were located at 26 2nd Avenue and went there. But they had moved. And at that time, the movement had not yet invented the sign saying we have moved. It hadn't yet been invented. That was a later invention, apparently. And then they moved down the street, further down 2nd Avenue. It took me months to find where they moved. You couldn't Google anything then. And again, the sign had not been invented. So about a year later, I made it to Henry Street. And I found them to be very strange folks indeed. So, but I was still interested. And I read the Gita several times in college. And I said, okay, if I want to understand this Gita, I'm really going to have to go to India. At that time, there were a lot of weird groups coming to America. After Prabhupada, you had Rajneesh and Guru Maharajji and different folks coming. And so I said, the only way I'll find out what's going on is to go to India. And so I signed up for an American program called the Peace Corps, in which very hard to get in, but very easy.
It's still going on.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Not in India, though. They threw us out when I was there.
I wonder why. Go ahead.
Well, because India and Pakistan had a war, and India sided with the Soviet Union, and America sided with Pakistan in the Cold War politics. And since the Peace Corps was part of the American government, that took care of that. So getting the Peace Corps was very difficult. Getting India apparently was very easy because no one wanted India, and I asked for India. So shortly after I graduated college, I was on a plane to India, and then I was assigned to the state of Bihar, which is kind of a backward state in India, politically, economically, socially, in almost every regard. And in Bihar, I was assigned to probably the most backward place in Bihar. Is considered an Adivasi territory in the south. And fortunately, it was the closest place the Peace Corps had to Calcutta. So I used to go there to visit, just to visit a large city. I was quite rural. And I ran into the Giriraj. I saw a poster, Hare Krishna Festival. I said, well, finally, I'll find out if Hare Krishna is a legitimate thing in India. Because I would ask around, do you chant Hare Krishna? And I would get these indescript answers. So I could never figure it out. And I was quite bewildered being in India. I would go to temples, mosques, and ask, why are you praying? And the whole praying mood in India was like, and we would compare it to Amazon.com nowadays, where you go and you deposit your punya points. Nowadays, it's your credit card, and the next day something's delivered to your door. So when I go to the temples, I said, why are you praying? What are you here for? What's it about? I wanted to understand the origins of the culture. And I want money, I want this, I want that. It was a big I want. I later learned it was karma kanda. And I was very disappointed. I thought I had gone halfway around the world to get Delhi belly and find nothing new. And then Giriraj Swami was speaking at this pandal.
He wasn't a Swami yet, right?
Giriraj Brahmachari was speaking at a pandal in 1971 in Calcutta, in a wealthy neighborhood. And his talk, I still remember it, was so brilliant. It was the first time in months and months in India somebody made philosophical sense. I said, maybe the Krishnas really do have it. And so I started, whenever I could make it to Calcutta, it was an overnight train ride, I would stay at the Salvation Army guest house and visit the temple. And one time I was there, and a devotee said, we're having a food relief program for Bangladesh refugees. The war with India and Pakistan had just finished. It was quite chaotic scene in Calcutta with the population doubling overnight.
Right.
And I thought to go help out food relief sounded like a nice thing to do. I was free of my teaching assignment that time frame. So I went up to Mayapur, not knowing what it was, not knowing anything about anything.
Krishna's arrangement.
It was. I mean, I had read the Gita. I was chanting Hare Krishna by then for 4 years, not knowing much about it. I hadn't read Prabhupada's Gita. It hadn't been available to me. I read kind of some Mayavadi Gitas that turned me off, but the Gita turned me on. So it was kind of that situation. And then when I went to Mayapur, Tejas, Prabhupada's disciple, met me as I got off the boat crossing the river, and he saw an American coming, and there were no guests at the first Mayapur festival, of first Gaur Purnima festival, and he saw an American.
ISKCON Gaur Purnima festival.
ISKCON Gaur Purnima. There were no guests whatsoever except Bengali villagers. And he saw me getting off the boat, and he had been in the Peace Corps, it turns out. And we immediately hit it off, started talking, and he took me up to the encampment. Now, Mayapur then was two buildings, a straw, what's now Prabhupada's Bhajan Kutir. It's been rebuilt after floods, but it's similar to what it was. Chutananda Swami then had built it for Prabhupada. And the second building was a straw outhouse for Prabhupada. But that building didn't last very long because somebody had the brilliant idea to stick a stick of incense in it. And that went poof up in flames. So we had one building and a men's tent, a women's tent, and a pandal tent. And that's it. That was it. And the food relief program. And it was the Gaur Purnima time. And that point, this is about Lord Chaitanya. I didn't really know much about Lord Chaitanya, except one thing I knew. I had devotees in Calcutta had explained to me that he was in Krishna appearing. Now that alarmed me and intrigued me because I had been in India long enough to hear about quite a few incarnations.
Right.
And I was living in Patna for a while, and I was visiting the one group. I guess I can say the name, the Ananda Marg, and they had a lot of Americans dressed in traditional Indian clothes, so people I could relate to. And I asked them about their guru, and they told me their guru was God. I said, that's very interesting to me. Where is he? I'd like to meet him. You mean, who doesn't want to meet God? Oh, he's been arrested. And they said, oh, what jail is he at? Well, he's in the prison hospital. Well, what's wrong with him? He's God. Well, his hemorrhoids got bad. Well, I scratched that off my list of potential candidates to be God because I didn't think God would be in a hospital with hemorrhoids. It just didn't fit the picture.
That wasn't your idea growing up.
No, and I met another fellow in New Delhi who told me he met God, an American fellow. He was my age and clean cut. In India, the only people my age then, I was 22, were hippies.
Right.
Long hair and quite unshowered. And so when I met, and the Peace Corps made us cut all our hair off before we went. So we all went to the barber college and got the buzz. So when I saw someone my age and clean cut, I was curious. He said, I came here looking for God. I said, great. So, well, I met this guru in South India, and he's quite amazing. He can make things appear out of his hand, and he can do all mystical things, and he knows the Gita inside out. I was intrigued. And then the fellow says, and I became his secretary. I said, wow. I said, this is it. This is why I came to India. He knows the Gita. He can do mystical things. That was quite interesting to me. And then it dawned on me. I said, but why are you in New Delhi? He says, well, I'm going home. Oh, why are you going home? And excuse the grossness. He said, I got tired of him reaching in my pants.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God, scratch that one off the list. Yes, so when
two strikes.
When the devotees told me that Lord Chaitanya was incarnation, I was intrigued and skeptical.
Of course, after everything you've been through so far.
Yeah, yet there was something about chanting Hare Krishna because the mantra just went deep with me, and it's like a song in our head. We hear a song, those from India, Bollywood, those from America, Bruce Springsteen, and we can't get the song out of our head. And so similarly, the mantra was stuck with me. I said, okay. And the devotees, I really liked them, even though they were sometimes a little strange. There was they actually had a level of renunciation that appealed to me, and a philosophical understanding that I hadn't met anyplace else in India. So I said, maybe this could be real. So then, so I went to Mayapur with a great desire to understand a little more about who this Chaitanya was.
Right.
I understood it was a birthplace. I learned that right away. I wanted to know who he was and could this be something real? Because something inside me said, there is something phony, but there is something real. I just knew there was. And so then Teja said, would you like to meet Prabhupada?
No kidding.
And I said, well, I met Prabhupada very briefly in Calcutta in November.
Really?
71. I'd been at the temple. I used to, when I'd make it to Calcutta, again, it was an overnight train ride, and my pay was only a few hundred rupees a month. So I had to count paisa. But I was in Calcutta, and Prabhupada in devotee, and he was in the temple, and Prabhupada, somebody voice said, you can come and sit. So I sat inside, and Prabhupada talked to me. Who are you? What are you here for?
Really? Wow.
I said, as a science teacher, and I'm curious. So he says, do you have any questions? And then I asked my first stupid question, and it was really stupid. And the question I asked was, I'd just come from Bodh Gaya, where I sat under the alleged sapling in the original tree where the Buddha got enlightenment. And I sat there, and I said, now I'll get enlightenment. And nothing happened. Because it's not cheap, I learned later. And then I was hungry like anything. So there was a Tibetan Buddhist camp nearby. I said, well, I'll go there. I can get a vegetarian lunch. And they had nothing vegetarian. So the whole thing was very disappointing to me. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So when I saw Prabhupada, though, I'd been recently in Bodh Gaya. So I said, Prabhupada, why not Buddhism? and Prabhupada gave, if any of you have really studied Prabhupada, you can guess what his answer was. When I said, why not Buddhism? Prabhupada didn't like discussing isms. And several times he said to me, not this ism or that ism. We discussed philosophy. He didn't want to have sectarian debates. And it was, he said it to me several times. And of course, he said it to others many times. So when I asked about Buddhism, Prabhupada's immediate response was, what did the Buddha say? He wants to discuss philosophy. What did I think the Buddha said? And we'll discuss the philosophy, not an ism. Very important point. So I said, well, he had a fourfold noble and ate this, or was it ate that and four this? And I went on muttering and mumbling to myself. Finally, I turned to him and said, Prabhupada, I don't know. I can't remember. He said, then why are you asking?
Really?
If you don't know what the Buddha said, then why are you asking this? And so at that point, I learned the first lesson. I ought to listen. So I just kept quiet, and Prabhupada would then begin a conversation. There was other people in the room with others, and I just stayed quiet. And then I left. And then, so that was my first brief encounter.
In the Gita, Prabhupada talks about absurd inquiry. That might have fit into that category.
It did. You're correct. It was an absurd inquiry. It had no basis. I had some attraction to Buddhism because I'd studied it in college, and we all read in
those days we all read those things.
Books of the time, the Watts books and series, the popular books of the time.
Was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance already out?
That was out, and later on I learned Watts died. It was the popular Buddhist author. Cirrhosis of the liver due to alcoholism, and but in the town I lived in had been mostly vegetarian until 10 years before I got there. One Hindu preacher came and he gave a class. And I was told about the class. And the class was right from the Gita. Deos minyata dehe. You are not this body. And the animals aren't this body. Therefore, you could eat them. And the whole town became non-veg overnight. And the only vegetarian in the town was one of my teacher colleagues who was a Buddhist. A rare kind of Buddhist in India. And so I had some attraction to Buddhism because vegetarian was important to me.
Right.
Though I didn't really become strictly vegetarian until I met Prabhupada. And even
tell us about that then. So you met Prabhupada the second time in Mayapur?
Yes. So then when I met Prabhupada, the first part of our conversation was not recorded. I wish it had been. Ouch. So the book begins, Perfect Questions, in an odd place. It begins in the middle of a conversation. We had a conversation, then the conversation ended, and then Prabhupada called me back. In fact, for the 3 days we were conversing, he would call me back multiple times a day to come see him.
So Tejas, how did it begin? Tejas meets you at the Ghat and says, "Do you want to meet Prabhupada?" And
yeah, and then
like
they put me in a tent. They put me in a tent. I put my stuff down, and I think
you're lucky if your stuff is still there, but anyway, that's another thing.
Well, it was things were pretty. I mean, the tent had a guard, so because
anyway, I'm sorry. That was a bad.
Yeah, no, there was a real issue because there were villagers who would kind of wander in, so they had a guard at the tent. So only the devotees, but there were I don't know 50, 70 devotees there, or something.
Really,
like
that many? Okay.
Yeah, and there was one guest. Now that becomes very, very important. Yes. And everyone was very anxious to preach. And the average age was probably 22. So everyone was super anxious to preach. And there was one person to preach to, one. And so Prabhupada kept me in his hut with him all day. I'm convinced for the main purpose of protecting me from 70 people preaching to me constantly.
Amazing.
And some of them, I couldn't tell if somebody had been a super senior advanced devotee who had been in the movement 5 years. That would be the max. Maybe.
Very senior, yes.
And somebody had joined the previous week. I couldn't tell the difference.
They all looked 25 years old.
Well, they did. And so, and there were wonderful devotees there, like Yadabara and Vishaka and Giriraj Brahmachari, and there were wonderful devotees. And there were some very strange devotees whose names I will leave out.
Okay, cool.
Who were, let's put it this way, over enthusiastic is how I would put it. So when I started speaking with Prabhupada, at that point, well, when the book begins, that's not the right place for the book to begin. And in a future edition, I should write up what happened in the first conversation. Obviously, I don't remember the details, but Prabhupada asked, who are you? Why are you here? The normal things that would happen. Yes, I'd met you in Calcutta. Prabhupada said, yes, I remember. He didn't reference my stupid question, thank God. And so the book begins, unfortunately, afterwards. What happened is Shyamasundar was the secretary, and after the first conversation, he had a very limited number of cassette tapes. So
cassette tapes.
He didn't record everything because there was a shortage of cassette tapes. At that point, he said, this sounds interesting, and hit the record button. I had no idea. I wasn't paying attention at all. And so then the conversation began, and we're starting to discuss science. But there had been a previous discussion discussing, I was a science teacher, and Prabhupada had made the point that you really can't be a teacher unless you know the absolute truth. I said, well, I can teach things that lead up to the absolute truth. There are tendencies, like when you study chemistry and the periodic table, you can see that there's some creator behind it. And Prabhupada appreciated that on one hand, And on the other hand, he said it's such incomplete knowledge. You need to know who this creator is. And so some of that was before the book began, and some of that's in the first chapter of the book. So my long-winded answer to it, how it got started, that's it.
Okay. And then what happened?
Well, then Prabhupada would call me in, and I'd be serving out. I was serving prasadam.
Okay. To the devotees?
Yeah, no, to the tens of thousands.
Oh, to the refugees. Yeah, yeah.
From Bangladesh. Hindus had fled Bangladesh.
Right.
And so I was serving, and devotee would come running up to me, Prabhupada wants to see you. I would say, I can't. I have my place in line. You know, it's a system. And they said, don't worry, we'll cover you. Just go. So
they must have thought you were nuts.
Well, I was told to stand here and serve prasadam, so I did my duties. I said, sure. So I went to see Prabhupada. When I'd go, I didn't offer obeisances. I would just fold my hands in the typical namaste fashion and sit down at Prabhupada's feet. It was on a low platform. And the whole time I was there, except when I was directly talking to him, I'd be looking at his feet.
Really?
Yeah, I just had that image in my mind. And in my first conversation with him, a thought went through my mind, and I specifically remember the thought. Now, I said, I don't know if this is the, as we would say now, pure devotee. My terminology then was a realized soul. I don't know, but something about him and something about his disciples and something about Lord Chaitanya all seems to fit. So I said, I am going to assume he's a realized soul. I'm going to assume, and I'm only going to ask my questions. I'm going to talk to him as if he's a realized soul. And later on, when I have time to process and think about it, I'll come to my own conclusion. But I'm not going to try to figure that out now.
Well, that's really interesting because Prabhupada tells us to do that in the Gita. He says, at least in the introductions, at least theoretically, accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead as you're reading the Bhagavad Gita.
That's
to get something out of it. Yeah. So,
and then in the Gita, there's a verse, and it says, approach a spiritual master. I did. Inquire submissively. I did. Render service. I did. I was serving out prasadam. If I wasn't with him, I was serving out prasadam. I mean, the queue went on forever. And at one time, they assigned me to watch cheaters, people who tried to get seconds before everyone got first.
That must have been fun.
Yeah. Everyone was kind of cooperative. It was people were appreciative, but nevertheless, different duties. So in the Gita, Krishna says, approach spiritual master, inquire submissively. By accident, I hit the right formula. And then the self-realized soul can give you the truth. I hit the formula without knowing it.
Wow.
I was lucky.
Yeah. Well, you were, fortunate.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Dhanapram. Shyam Keshava Prabhuji, you can directly share the PPT and introduce.
Hare Krishna, am I audible? Krishna Tirtha.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so nice to see Brahma Tirtha already had his distance. Okay. So let us have a short introduction about His Grace Brahma Tirtha Prabhu. So Brahma Tirtha Prabhu, he is a senior disciple of His Grace Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada, who came in contact with it in 1971. That's what Prabhupada was also mentioning. And then he served in various capacity within the movement. So coming to Krishna consciousness, so I was reading the book that compiled by Prabhuji. Perfect question, perfect answer. So Prabhu, he's from New York basically, and he had a spiritual interest before coming to Krishna consciousness itself. He was religiously interested in the religion. That's what he was saying, because he was a student of science. So he was the understanding that God means some creator or something like that, but he was not aware that exactly who is the God and who am I, what is the purpose of life. So in his school time, he also read some Oriental subjects there, but he was not quite satisfied and clear with those studies. So then in 1970. 68, I think. Yeah. No, 1971. He came in contact with the devotees in New York itself. There he heard the chant of Hare Krishna, and he became mesmerized by that. The devotee then introduced him the Back to Godhead magazine, but he could not purchase that time. And later on, when the devotees went away, so he was quite regretting that, oh, why he could not take that book basically. And so he's writing there. Yeah, actually, that was the seed of Krishna consciousness in my heart that was planted. And later on, he got the chance to come back. I mean, after his graduations, he got the chance to come back to India to serve as the Peace Corps. So he was a science teacher who came here in India in Kolkata. So he got his initiation from His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and he received the name from Bob's to Brahma Tirtha Das. So his services and contribution in the movement, let us see. So professional roles he played as, he was a mediator and advisor. So he has served as a professional mediator and advisors this EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. And he was also a city planner for basically the Gaines Valley Planning Board. So he served as a director of the city of Gaines Valley Planning Board, and he contributed to urban development and planning. As I was mentioning, that he authored the book Perfect Question, Perfect Answer. So it's nothing but the conversation between him and Srila Prabhupada that he had after his meetings. I think second meeting, he had in Mayapur that time. So that's what the conversation is. So his initial conversation with Srila Prabhupada, where he recorded and later published in the book format, providing like very basics and the genuine question, the genuine insights of the spiritual journey and the teachings that he received from Prabhupada. So many fundamentals topic has been discussed in that book basically. So he had few educational initiatives as well in this talk. So he made this Krishna House. He served as a board member at Krishna House, engaging in educational and development programs to inspire and guide the party, practitioners there. Then also this BIHS, so Bhakti Vedanta Institute for Higher Studies. So Prabhuji, he has been instrumental, in engaging the devotees, especially the scientist community, to demonstrate their materialism, which does not fulfill the phenomenal and origins of life and consciousness. So he was quite expert because he was from the science background. So he engages many scientists and all in propagating and spreading this Krishna consciousness movement. So current engagements, like he is teaching and lecturing. He continues to deliver lectures and talks, sharing his experience and knowledge to inspire others on the spiritual path. One of a very a wonderful remembrance of Srila Prabhupada that Prabhuji said. I'll just try to narrate it. So it's the instance of 1973. He was in narrow hallway between Prabhupada's quarters and the temple room in this Henry Street Temple. So Prabhupada was going to walk, and the hallway was lined by the devotees. So he was also very impressed and thinking like people, because he met Prabhupada in 1971 and it's 1973, he has not been initiated yet. So he feel impressed And he was thinking like people, they are joining and they're getting initiated in just 6 months, but I'm not initiated yet. So uh, he was thinking that I am in graduate school and chanting 16 round, but not rendering any other services. So I don't want Prabhupada to see me. And that was his humility. So he was thinking, let Prabhupada doesn't see me. So everybody was, because when they saw Srila Prabhupada, everybody was bowing down and just they chanted some mantra and quickly they tried to, get up so that Prabhupada could see them. But Prabhuji thought, let Prabhupada doesn't see me because I'm not doing any services at all. So he just bowed down at the side and he started chanting the mantra very slowly so that it may take a lot of time and Prabhupada may pass away. But he was chanting, and meanwhile Prabhupada saw him. So Prabhupada stopped, and Prabhupada waited till he completed the pranam mantra of Prabhupada. And when he got up, so Prabhupada told, "Oh, uh, Prabhupada told that. Sorry, he told, oh, uh, I saw you. Nice to see you here." And he put his arms around him and gave me a huge hug. So in this way, he shared his very nice experience with Srila Prabhupada. So I like to add some more his experience that is written in the introduction of the Perfect Question, Perfect Answer book. So that's what I was narrating. In 1968, uh, he had this impression of Hare Krishna mantra and all in New York. And then when he came back here in India in 1971, that's Prabhuji was also mentioning in the lecture itself, that when he saw a huge banner of Hare Krishna festival, so he went there in Kolkata, met with Prabhupada. He was hearing the lectures. But in the third day, first day, it became difficult for him to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. But the third day, he was devotees went to him and told, Prabhupada wants to see you. He became surprised. Why? I mean, there is someone, a very big personality, and he doesn't know me at all. But that's what we can see, that Prabhupada personally touches, some of his especially empowered souls. So he chooses Prabhuji also, and he invited him and had some personal conversations. And then later on, in October, uh, in Kolkata, he started frequently coming to the temple. So there, the devotees introduced him more about Krishna conscious philosophy and the purpose of yoga system and all. And then in the November of 1971, he got the opportunity to go to Mayapur there. And that's what the Prabhuji was telling, the vegetarian. So he was very much inspired by being vegetarian. So Prabhupada also inspired him, yeah, you become vegetarian. So that's it. And then in February 72, again he made the devotee there in Kolkata. So they invited him for the festival in Mayapur, this God Purnima festival. So he went there, he had a nice conversation. And based on that conversation, he has written this very wonderful book. So this is one of the very fundamental and interesting book for all the, I hope like almost all the devotees over here, they have been gone through this perfect question, perfect answer book, because many fundamental topics and many fundamental questions that has been asked by Prabhuji and being answered by Srila Prabhupada. So really a very nice treasure Prabhuji gave to all of us. So thank you so much, Brahma Tirtha Prabhuji, for this wonderful book to all of us. Hare Krishna, thank you devotee for joining us and hearing the glories of the glorious disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And thank you, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, for giving me this opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Oh, Prabhupada. ब्रह्मदत्त प्रभु ने गुरु मगर डीलन में एक बार इसको बोला था, डीलन गुरुराज था, तो बोले मेरा पता नहीं है, प्रभुपाद का आंसर तो परफेक्ट आंसर है, लेकिन मेरा क्वेश्चन कैसे परफेक्ट क्वेश्चन हो सकते हैं? परफेक्ट क्वेश्चन परफेक्ट आंसर है, लेकिन मैं तो नया भक्त था, तो प्रभुपाद का सारे आंसर परफेक्ट है, लेकिन मेरा क्वेश्चन परफेक्ट क्वेश्चन कैसे हो सकता? तो प्रभुपाद के साथ रहने से फायदा है, उनका क्वेश्चन भी परफेक्ट हो गया है। हरे कृष्ण। प्रभुपाद की जय। बहुत बहुत